Thank you, Wax, for elaborating on Talaban. It was the first word that actually came to my mind as I was going through this show. And I'm very aware that this is the Manila staging of the exhibition. And that's actually one of the first things I wanted to kind of bring up to you, Leslie. First of all, how did the conceptualization, womb to tomb proceed for the show, and what kind of adjustments did you have to kind of think through as you were thinking of this space as opposed to where it was first?
In Singapore,
Yes,
you
yes.
mean? Oh. Well, when Gadget Gallery invited me last year to have a solo show with them in Singapore, the first thing that I told them is like, I'd like the show to be curated. And I chose Joyce to curate the exhibition simply because I have worked with her in the past two exhibitions with Gaja also in a group exhibition. And then we started this really very interesting conversation, a kind of relationship with the curator, which I actually missed for a long time since in the very first time that nagkaroon ako ng very rather effective or rather meaningful and I think useful na curator artist way of working. It was with Bobby for my
Right.
solo exhibition in 2003. So when I worked with Joyce again in 2022 or 2023, I don't know, 2023 for a group show, parang nagkaroon uli ng ganong klaseng na parang the kind of curatorial approach that she does is like really digging on their ideas, parang kakalasin niyang mabuti. And then she'll ask you important questions, and then she will help you shape the work very nicely, but according to the tone of your voice and also according to your capacity and skills and handling of materials and capacity to articulate and interpret things. And then she's very, very sharp and always attuned to the context of where you're going to. So parang, so when we started this exhibition, she asked me, okay, what kind of show would you like to come up with? And as you know, I've been working with Project Space Pilipinas for 18 years now. So, and then I've been based in Quezon for maybe 15 in those 18 years. Although doon talaga rin ako nakatira. But most of my production and development ng mga works ko were mostly done in Lucban or in my home in Tayabas. So yung immediate surrounding is very important for me. And during those years, I saw the importance of looking at the surroundings or yung environment, na immediate environment ko, which is Lucban, the kind of culture that we have, the kind of rituals that we have, the kind of traditions that we have. And then I look at it as like, okay, this is not just about celebrations and the expression of faith, and this could be used as a kind of a strategy for, let's say, you can discuss about contemporary socio-political issues and how these things are rooted in this or other continuing rituals that we practice, but hoping that when you translate it into a more, let's say, a different form or artistic translation, hoping ka na you would be able to elevate the conversation and maybe ask, give people the possibility of rethinking also when they get to encounter the translation or the different articulation of your work. But putting it in a different level. So for example, thinking of pagbabasa ng pasyon, something that is very, a kind of practice that we do mostly in our mga hometowns, ganyan. So parang isip ko, what if that kind of repetitive reading of some text would narrate or dictate the, let's say, the title of the artworks that were stolen or found in the possession of the Marcoses, or the jewelries, and then juxtapose it with, let's say, the narrative of Noli Me Tangere or some chapters. But these are also important texts that we get to really encounter also, but we hardly think about it, So how do you translate that and elevate that in a level in such a way that, okay, this is something different, the kind of representation or restaging. But at the same time, you have that sensitivity with materials, how the community was using these techniques or practices and maybe do something about it. So, yung adjustment is, honestly, hindi ko kino-consider yung paano ko siya, let's say, the audience will be, because the exhibition was first presented in Singapore, so do I have to adjust to the space, this is not my first time to do an exhibition in a space like this na sobrang laki, but it is always very challenging, very stressful. I need to be very honest with you. It may look like, okay, well thought of, but until the end of the day, the last day of the installation, parang there's always uncertain feeling na parang kulang yung work, or the works are not, they will not, stand, or hold water for me, or, for the idea. So parang that's laging may doubt, so parang okay. But ako din naman, I feel like whenever I work, I was like, okay, that's it. I gave everything, and then just kung ano yung magiging resulta niya, that's it. But I never imagined that it will look like this, the exhibition. That's why I'm really happy to work with a very good curator who can help you think and position things and contextualize things and and sharpen, and then so that kasi very yung production process intense. Very intense, parang okay, you're thinking how kailangan kong ma-meet yung deadline, and then you have to imagine and visualize pag na-set up na ba to, will it say the message that I want to say, or it will be like wala. But the show must go on, and you have to do what you can deliver, and that's it. So, yung adjustment, well, since I was working with the curator, I also discussed it with her, and she knows very well that okay, she can help me, she can assist me with very important kasi yung framing and contextualizing ng exhibition. So, and with that kind of assistance, hindi ako masyadong na pressure to really adjust on things. But I still want to be consistent with the way I produce and talk about ideas and translate or articulate them in different forms and different materials.
Thanks, Les. Actually, I also wanted to pick up on what Wax was pointing out about the title of the talk. The reason Talaban came to mind, primarily perhaps because I'd kind of been watching, as Leslie has said, I've been watching from afar, from where I'm in Parañaque and he's in Quezon for the most part. But I've sensed that Leslie is deeply invested in exploring the tensions between living in a site like Quezon, which from a cultural management and tourism perspective is still very much anchored on tradition and folk, and very static ideas of what those are.
Yes.
As opposed to an artist who basically left Quezon to study and then returned and had to kind of find his place there again. And I've always been very interested in how artists do that, and that's how I see what PSP is doing, in a very, very interesting way. So when I bring up Talaban, to my mind, it's also yung kiskisan, dialectics, dialogic potencies. And here in this particular assemblage of objects, I see a lot of references to the folk, but at the same time, yun nga, was this the first time you've kind of had this dalliance with AI now?
In a way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's extremely fascinating for someone who's watching how things are going on, how artists are navigating that. So maybe and I'm hoping you've also had a chance to kind of look at what's on the floor, on top as well. I thought I'd bring up a few of the objects and installations, and then maybe we can begin to talk about that. For instance, the parade with the calf, which we were beginning to talk about over lunch.
Yeah.
How you decided to invite the, what would we say, the commoners or the locals, to apply the sheen, no, on the surface, and how that occasioned in a way very rich conversations. Of course, when I first looked, oh wow, golden calf, all the biblical resonances that brings to the table. But you were beginning to tell me back there that wasn't the way conversations went. Perhaps we could share that with the crowd.
Well, actually, we have this thing. One of the rituals. The whole exhibition started with the basic. There's this one research, one Lucbanin who has this research. Ang tawag niya is Kararanan, 9 select rituals in Lucban, and then it includes yung pagbabasa ng pasyon. Well, mostly yung 9 rituals na yan related sa celebration or sa practice ng faith and religion sa Lucban. And then yung golden calf or yung toro is part of the ritual wherein mayroong dalawang higante, big paper mache na higante, or Sagrada Corazon or the Sacred Heart of Jesus, wherein they parade itong dalawang giants or gigantes, and they look like mestizos. They're like a couple, mestizos. But in that parade, they also bring out a toro na nilalagyan nila ng fireworks, and then they sinisindihan nila, and then pinapaputok yung fireworks, and then kids would run around and naghahabulan sila and everything. So the aesthetic or the optics of the giants, and then the toro, those are the things that I caught my attention first, you know. But also there is this myth written by Ramon Salvatus, yung lolo ni Mark Salvatus, about the ermit and the golden bull. You know, the golden bull is actually the ermit is the one who stand by or who look after the mountain, yung Mount Banahaw. Yung Lucban is located at the foot of Mount Banahaw, and there's a belief na there's somebody taking care of the mountain, which is the ermitaño. And then one day, he saw this golden bull, a bull or a toro, arriving in his cave because it's raining and ano. And then sabi nung ermitaño, sobrang shimmering yung kanyang balahibo, almost like a gold. So the toro would always roam around the mountain to look after. If there are locals who would cut trees or damage so basically guarding the mountain, you know. And then itong myth na to was written and published in the magazine, and then it's so basically the toro is the iconic symbol that would look after the mountain, you know. And then there was parang incident wherein yung mga tulisan would attack the town, and then because of the belief of the people that the toro will protect them, so they were made to believe that the toro like created an illusion that there is parang they call it body of water between the tulisan and the ano, so hindi nag-push through, but actually it was just an illusion. Okay. So the people parang made a tribute about this miracle, if you like, about the toro. So when we procession that kind of myth is, of course, it's a fiction, it's a work of a fiction, but it's something that existed within the town. So when we procession this, paper mache pa lang siya when we started it, you know, a few people would approach us and tell us like, that's the story of the golden bull is true, because a person that we know saw that golden bull in the mountain, and that mailap siya, elusive, mahirap hulihin, but he was not able to catch the toro. He came down to town to get something like parang rope to catch the toro, but when he got back, wala na yung golden bull. And he is not the only person who saw that. Exciting. You know, so that kind of mix of stories, you know. So parang the myth making, creating realities, but realities parang may glitch or something, and then so that's what we wanted to, or what I wanted to bring, you know, to diminish that kind of myth in the town. So by bringing the toro around and then allowing the people to participate, hoping that maybe someone could retrieve or recall that kind of memory in the town. But at the same time, the symbol of toro and the higante is very, I would say, parang symbolic also of the kind of class structure in Lucban, you know, because those who can own or who would take care of the two higantes or giant are mostly those who have, you know, the rich people, and as well as those who can really have the toro, and you know. So I thought of using this kind of aesthetic or form and remake it by coming up with our own toro, and then also gumawa ako ng call for higante designing competition. I don't know if you saw that in the social media. Nagkaroon ako ng open call for young people to participate in higante making contests, and then I would like to bring back the kind of access to creativity to the ordinary people, because when you parade the giants, the locals are like looking like that, you know. They enjoy the view of, you know, seeing the higante parading and then running after the kids, but the optics, like, you know, it's very colonial and very feudal, diba? You have giants running after the locals, and then sa periferis on the sides are locals watching the display of power of the rich people in that small town, especially the toro, you know. So it's very symbolic, I think. So by having this kind of artistic strategy wherein you allow people to take charge of the creation and the designing and the producing or making their own ideas of what higante should be, and then sila yung nagpaparada, you know, parang you're empowering them, you know. So parang at the same time, ganun din yung toro. They apply the gold by using the metaphorically applying gold as a kind of understanding at saka implying or conveying that this is something precious, this kind of story, this kind of narrative. So you're giving them the agency also.
Because they made it precious.
They made it, you know. So hindi na kumbaga select people lang yung nakakaroon ng access and parang participation dun sa
Right.
ganong klaseng na activity.
What
Then-
happens to the I'm curious, what happens to the calf? Does it return to your town at some point, or
Yeah, actually, yung original plan namin is that after the exhibition in Singapore, it will
Mhm.
come back here. And then I will make an open call again for the Higante making contest for kids. And then we're going to parade the toro. The kids will be walking at the back of... Yung mga higanteng bata, they will be the ones running after the toro. And then we will look for an area, and then they will surround the golden bull, and then they will burn it. So this will be burned. So sasabayan namin yung festival sa June. I think June or July, yung Sagrada Corazon, Sagrada Corazon de Jesus, yeah. So, and that kind of burning is also very symbolic, And then the ordinary and the locals like surrounding that golden shimmering na something. And then again, nandun din yung idea na we will do this every year. So you're parang creating another ritual. So but also to remind people that we should take over of our culture, not only for select people in the town. So yung ganun.
and you mentioned that because this was happening in the midst of floodgate, that aspect would arise as people were
Yeah.
gilding the calf. No?
Well, aside from the yung time na pinoprosesyon namin yung paper mache na bull, people would like, okay, can I join? And of course you're. And then some of them would tell this story about the golden bull that they know about, the fiction about Lucban and everything. And then some would post and share on Facebook like, that's masamang pangitain, it's a bad omen. Seeing of course, the paganist association of the golden bull. And then sometimes, or there's one time na we invited yung mga tricycle drivers na naka-station sa may tabi ng 7-Eleven. Kuya, sali kayo, maglalagay ng gold leaves. And then I always contextualize works. I do not just invite people. Meron akong art project, and then I always tell them what this is about and why we're doing this. And then, sige, we go. Sabi ng mga tricycle driver. And then they will say, pwede rin nating i-connect ito dun sa mga ghost project, para yung mga ganun. Sila nag-interpret, yung corruption and everything. It's like, wow, hindi ko naman finifeed na, this is about this and that, but they have that kind of notion. So I think yung aesthetic of, this is yung favorite kong line from artist Paul Chan. Everything has an aesthetic. So that's actually where we should really focus on as artists, How do we translate those aesthetics so we can convey a proper interpretation of works so parang we can impact change, So ibig sabihin, yung idea ng gold associated with this kind of activity or applying, and then merong silang ganung klaseng reading, which is very interesting, And that's the thing that we are really parang centering on with the kind of projects that we do in PSP. It is really about uplifting, elevating, contributing in the development of visual literacy in Lucban, So yun yung works. That's why marami na kaming ginagawa ngayon na talagang community engaged projects and participations.
Right. And you did bring up translation as a major trope in your practice, and I've always kind of been wondering, and again, quite surprised at how much you're able to get away with. Because, for instance, this work, I would think would ruffle some feathers because you're already right. So it's half, let's say, half divine, half desacralized, diba? And I'm wondering if those risks, how they play out. I suppose they play out differently when it's the more immediate crowd that you more regularly engage with, as opposed to when it's here in a gallery and it's a lot more distanced. Could you share a little bit how that has turned out?
Actually, when I first presented this in Lucban, well, I guess yun din yung advantage because we do have the space. PSP, a small artist-run space, which I guess is in a way parang safe na space because it's, well, we've been there for like more than 15 years and people are already aware of this is an art space. So the context parang gave us a kind of, security as well, But people would always ask, especially when we invite people to come in and like, okay, this is the work, or like okay, why? The usual question, and we don't shy away with those kind of very parang innocent na tanong. Bakit kalahati yung paa? I mean, why? Paano naging art yan? Those kind of, and then, but we are used to those kind of questions. But that's why whenever I talk about my work or even works that we present in PSP, I always go to the most basic of, okay, where are we right now? We are in PSP. What is this? This is an art and cultural space. What kind of works do we present here? This is we present this kind of works, blah, blah, blah. And then up to what is art composed of, form and content, what is content, what is form and everything. So we have to go on that very long stretch of really making people understand that, okay, and then you will tell them this is how you're going to participate.
So you're saying the shock value kind of eases off
really
because of the engagement that's been happening. Yeah. And for those of you who have not been to Lucban, you must go. I would say just the way you get introduced to the space is quite interesting because there's a store,
a gift shop.
Right. The facade is a gift shop. So there's none of this antiseptic, sanctified
just
white
to give
box.
them an idea, yung PSP used to be my studio. Yeah, PSP actually was first introduced nung inopen namin siya dito sa Mandaluyong. Also my former studio, but because it's very expensive to run a space here, I transferred it in Lucban. Tapos ginawa ko siyang well, before ko pala siya i-transfer, nakakuha ko ng studio, which is a former billiard hall. And then, nung nag-studio ako doon, I asked my parents, Nay, gawa ka ng something outside, like maybe a gift shop, sari-sari or whatever, so that somebody will look after the studio. So that's the, and then you have something you can make money from, diba? Parang may pang ka rin. And then, so I used the studio for a couple of years, and then I got married, and then I transferred to another town, and then that's when I brought PSP to Lucban, and then I converted that as artist-run space, and then we retained yung gift shop. So when you look at the it's very unassuming. It's not like the usual art space in a white compound or exclusive compound or a commercial gallery space. This is like right sa tabi ng karsada, maaring ma-miss mo actually. So but that's how we wanted it to be presented also. Honestly, nung first few years when I transferred it there, I have a little bit of parang insecurity also, like hindi naman mukhang art space kasi because I'm so used to working with really white cube type, working with galleries abroad, and exhibitions and museums and everything. But when I had an opportunity to have a residence, when I had the opportunity of having the residency in Korea, in Germany, I saw that wow, pwede palang i-transform yung ordinary kahit small corner, and then it's just what is more important is the programming than what the space is or what you're putting in the space. What kind of programming, whether it's exhibition program or the kind of forms and objects that you put inside. So,
though I would argue, I mean, this from an outsider's perspective, nothing is less intimidating than a sari-sari store look as a facade. Diba, that's something you find everywhere.
Everywhere,
yeah,
yes.
And I would say that's an extremely great way to bring people into a space. Despite your hindi ko alam na you had those
Stories.
hesitations about it not being like a proper space at that point. Yeah.
It took me some time before I got to really like, why not?
Yeah.
I honestly felt that way also. Parang kailangan white cube something, but
yeah, my other like big question coming after viewing the show was that was your reference, well, not just referencing, but really using AI in your production process. And I'm not sure if this is because I'm a teacher and I'm really quite violently problematizing the onset of AI in our work, but because AI still pretty much to me registers as the uncrafting of craft. Yeah, and my reading of PSB's work and yours as well as your team's is that you've kind of been really making room for craft in all its not just traditional but contemporary resonances. So how do you navigate that here? I mean, maybe that's not how you think of AI, but but I'd like to hear.
Like what I said, I think that yung immediate environment mo will really contribute very well in how yung thought process mo as well as yung choice of materials.
Baka pwede mo ikwento saan mo ginamit yung AI.
Well, AI dun sa 6 black and white paintings and then also yung malaking painting here. As well as the round paintings and dun sa 4 na portraits. Okay. So when I say AI, it's not the AI that wherein you throw in like a prompt and then you just come up, the AI will come up or generate an image for you. These works that I presented here, I started with my own photograph. Okay, so I have an original photograph and I'm actually not even using AI apps. I'm just using the generative fill in Photoshop. So I just, like I have a black and white photo and then I'll just select a space and then
so it's within Photoshop.
Hindi, kaya nga parang I don't know if we can call this as AI, but more of probably an intervention with maybe a tool in Photoshop lang, you know. But since may similarities with, you know, you have to command or train like, okay, I want to put some roots, okay, or distort something. But these are based on my own photographs. I did not just put the prompt na, okay, I want to create a still life of vegetable. And that's, yun yung lalabas. Hindi siya ganon. So, like Photoshop or Illustrator, yung AI is just a tool for me to really extend and probably stretch, you know, yung possibilities. But as you can also see, nandito pa rin, makikita mo yung just the positioning of what is traditional, you know, by putting it next to traditional output of craft like weaving and materials, which is actually painting is also a tradition,
right?
Diba? So how do you push that and then how do you put them together? And then what kind of idea or will come out of this juxtapositioning? So I'm interested with the abstraction that happens whenever you have this kind of intervention or interaction with that AI, let's say, yeah, call it AI. But with this one, for example, this is a portrait. The AI part is on the text. So I came up with the photos of the 4 farmers and then, okay, I asked AI, can you create a short poem about this person? His name is Angelo Villa. So the kind of imagination is coming from a different space, you know.
Where does this backstory come from before AI generates the text? I'm sorry.
it's actually about the idea of portraiture. The portraiture as an imagined.
Pero hindi fictional, right? I mean,
No, these are actual
yeah. The
farmers.
persons are
Ay,
real.
walang rendering from AI yung person. It's just the well, and whenever I use text, these are texts that are I use them sometimes as textures, sometimes as supporting ideas, or sometimes as supporting ideas.
But are they stories from the people?
No, not
no.
really. So
Okay.
they are also fictional. So that kind of tension also
Okay.
happens. So who are these people? But again, the presentation incomplete pa rin eh, 'di ba? Kasi natatakpan nila yung text eh, 'di ba?
And I imagine someone might bring that up, that you're, the subaltern is being spoken for by AI, and that will rattle quite a few people right away. Yeah, but I totally understand why artists are interested to discover what can be done.
For example, yung malaking painting, I have this black and white photo of a Last Supper wooden carving I took from Paete, Laguna, which actually I also presented in my solo show in Mo Space last time. And then I played with the photo, and then I came up with this image. So the kind of distortion and also resetting and restaging in a different form. But these are actually coming from my own photograph, Right. So probably playing with the unpredictability of what's going to come up, because you're used to, I mean, where at least for myself, I'm used to really creating works that I can already imagine what will be the output. It's like, okay, it's going to be a set of these figures, the motif will be like this, and then, but what if you can interact with an abstract entity and, what will be the output? And maybe, again, pushing the boundaries of image making also.
Thanks. Gives me a lot of things to think about. Maybe the third big question, or third big prompt for me was the chandeliers. Well, because I quickly recognized them as the CCP chandelier types, but as you dig into the literature, we find that they're actually materials that are not quite as delicate and precious as the original one. So you used pig skin, tama? Intestine. What is the other one? Sorry. Ito yung rice paper. That's rusted, stained. And of course, to me, where's that desire coming from, that you create really fancy kind of slick objects, but then you're obviously trying to invite people to think beyond that, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
How has that been? How many people have actually
recognized?
Yeah, parang yung have called you on that, and actually dug into the into the material.
You add into the materials. Well, of course, they always get curious about the materials, and I think as an artist, it is your duty to really be selective of the most effective materials to use, to at least pique the interest of the people, so you can really further the conversation that you want to push for. So but then again, itong series na to, I've been like looking at forms that, in a way, very quiet. This is very yung source. Maybe if we go to CCP, hindi natin masyadong napapansin yung chandelier, But again, nakapaloob ito sa isang struktura na symbolic of the kind of power that took part in our history. And I find it really interesting. And then how can you alter this kind of form and then suddenly put an attention to this, But at the same time, how can you stretch it in such a way that it will also convey similar or probably talk about someone else or other characters. So by using the form or inspiring, getting inspired with the kind of form, existing form, and then altering the materials, you can already further the conversation and discussion about it. But more than, but what gave me courage also to push for this kind of sculptural installation work is also this tradition that we have in Lucban, pahiyas, the arangya,
Yes.
or the rice flakes na, chandelier type. But so I felt like it's only proper that I can also work with the idea of chandelier. And then by having that kind of history and origin that I have in Lucban, and that kind of association that I have with the cultural, the in a bigger scale, of being part of the cultural sphere of the Philippines, I would like to believe that I have the license to talk about these kind of things.
Definitely.
So when I first made the first one, the rice paper, we got so excited, like, oh my God, I can push for like 2. Actually, I have 4 chandeliers. I don't know. So I have, this one is hiyas. Hiyas is gem in English, or that's also the root word of the word pahiyas, which is to decorate or to embellish or to adorn. So sa Lucban we call the festival pahiyas, but hiyas is actually gem or something that is precious. So the title of the work is Hiyas Imelda. Obviously, it's associating with the decadent and the true, the good, and the beautiful of the era. So, and at the same time, that's the chandelier that is located in that so-called cultural center of the Philippines, and Lucban is also a cultural center,
Right.
because actually Lucban is the art and culture capital of Quezon Province, which is very questionable for us. But and so I thought, okay, if I can associate this work with another character, maybe I can come up with a Gloria, but using the dried pig intestine. So that one is the dried pig intestine. Yung dried pig intestine naman is something that is the intestine used for longganisang Lucban. So again, Lucban naman. And this is not the first time that I have used the dried pig intestine. Because you have to process it. So yung process is dinikit namin yung intestine, and then I covered it or layered it with wax. So yung wax is the one that prevents it from hopefully it will last long, but nawawala yung amoy niya. And I even used that material for painting also, as a surface for painting. So, and then that one naman is yung curtain fabric, which is very domestic or domesticated, I don't know. And then I put some rust and to add some texture. And then the 4th one, which I'm not sure if will push through, is Hiyas Lenny. Pero hindi ko pa But the one is made of piña fiber.
Kasi gawa sa Bicol?
Yeah, piña is very precious and fine. But something that I will hope to realize in the near future. So it's going to be a set of 4 chandelier. But I'm reserving that one for myself, the last chandelier.
I just wanted to also bring up obviously there's a very strong political
Definitely.
undertone to the chandeliers, but at the same time, going back to the idea of Talaban and yung kiskisan, tapos itinabi mo dun sa mga EJK body bags dun sa di ba? Naiisip ko, I've been thinking through things like when we're able to find your backstory, the political content is very potent, except that when the objects leave the gallery and get bought by a collector, what happens to that?
Yun lang. What happened to you mean the narrative?
Yes, which you totally lose control over as an artist. Not just you, but every artist actually.
Well, as soon as the work leaves the studio, you tend to lose some control about the work.
And how do you feel about that?
That's why it's very important in an exhibition there should be a contextualization of the work, and probably documentation, and then of course you need to find ways to further the conversation and maybe the articulation of the work. So whether you put it on publication or social media or a website, But if it's going to be collected by a collector, maybe it's also best to really talk about the work as well. But I just hope that's why ang ganda nung Talaban is it's about potency and bisa.
Yes.
Diba? May bisa ba yung materyales na ginamit mo, and so that's why it's very crucial yung choice of materials and how you articulate your ideas or translate your ideas rather. Because pag nakalagay na yan sa bahay ng collector, it should be able to hold water on its own. So if the chandelier is already in the middle of the living room, and then they say, okay, ganda ng chandelier mo, and then when you say, okay, this is made of pig intestine, and the title is Gloria. So hopefully they would connect and at least give a hint on the kind of narrative or the backstory about the work, So pasok talaga crucial talaga yung conceptualization ng work mo and translation ng work through materials and the form that you use.
You're very optimistic.
No, I mean at least that's
yeah.
I mean, but I acknowledge the fact that when the work leaves the studio, talagang wala na eh. Even if it's for exhibition or for the display sa collector's house.
Right.
Wala
I mean,
talaga.
I'm not saying that as a hit on you, but it's just that I've seen really, really strongly, outspoken work bought up by political kingpins, and they don't flinch. So there's always that
I actually have works like that also.
I'm thinking maybe this is a good time to open up the floor. Yes, 2 questions. Should I?
Hi, I was just thinking in terms of the material that you're highlighting here coming from Quezon province, have you ever considered banana and coconut? Because those are quite familiar for Quezon province compared to piña coming from Bicol. Because I believe Filfida, one of the agencies of the government, they are creating paper from banana, whilst with coconut, there's the byproduct of coconut coir. Is that something that you've looked into?
Yeah, actually, as Ate Eileen mentioned, you can just... Ate Eileen. Actually, yeah. As she mentioned earlier, yung position namin in Project Space Pilipinas is very much into amplifying the use of existing materials that can be found within the work of the Buntal weavers, and so yes, we have that kind of consideration. That's why we, like for example, you mentioned about coconut. I've been thinking for many years now how I can utilize the coconut net, the net from the coconut husk, right? And maybe use it for either installation work or sculptural work, or maybe because it's fiber, right? And then just recently we had a donation from what do you call this, college students who's doing their thesis, creating a machine that would create the fiber that we can use for paper. These materials are very much considered in our position as an artist space in Lucban, because this is the first thing that we would like to introduce to the local artists. That's a problem. I don't know if it's the right space to talk about tradition and because our art education is very much surrounded by Western concepts and Western way of making. And sometimes we tend to forget the available materials that we have. And then if art is about translation and expression of ideas, it doesn't have to be oil on canvas. Diba? So these are things that, we are also very sensitive when it comes to doing our part in pushing for the development of culture in Lucban. We try to introduce to people like, okay, it doesn't have to be on canvas. You can use ordinary like paper, or we can create our own paper, or we can produce and use materials that are available. So especially, that's why I used the rice paper, because we've been experimenting yung keeping, and then, but that kind of consideration would also require ideas. It's not just, okay, let's use banana. But sometimes you have to find the matching idea that would either help your idea be realized properly, and that will support the kind of idea that you want to put. And then that's when the time that you use those materials. Okay, so you do not just like, okay, I'll use banana, I want to use. Of course, the question would be why use banana something, or why use coconut net? So it's just a matter of waiting for the appropriate idea that we can incorporate. So just like the way I use it for those chandeliers, and so yung ganung klaseng sensitivity is something that we practice in Lucban, and it's very important for us. The promotion of those materials that can be sourced locally also. Was I able to answer it? Yes.
Hi, Les. Ma'am Eileen. Actually, thanks for that very engaging conversation. I think I'm curious about parang extension lang ng question, pero I think you've answered it already, but please feel free to respond still. Parang, or how is it important na you're using material culture embedded in the locality, knowing that, of course, we know that you're getting references to na ang daming layers na rin sa myth, literature, tradition, folk, and so that's one. And I think the second question I have is, because I've experienced this firsthand, was in parang, how is it important that yung visual literacy that you mentioned, parang there's always this effort, a natural effort for you to educate, engage the townspeople. Then so I think how is that important now to your practice?
Okay. Well, first, yung question mo about materials. I think working in the contemporary art scene or art world, it's parang it. I don't know if it's kalakaran or a trend that you have to be you have to come up with something unique also, but with the usual or the conventional materials that we use to present in contemporary art, to come up with a unique materials that would match the ideas that you would like to interpret or translate is very parang ang sarap sa pakiramdam actually. But on the context also of making especially the locals, if they get to encounter the kind of elevating of materials in a different form, in a different narrative, gives them a different way of looking at materials. Pwede palang gamitin ito as art material, as a medium for as a medium, as a vehicle, as a vessel that will contain the kind of struggles and aspirations that we have as a people. And that's why I don't know if I was able to answer that question, but on your second question naman, parang I grew up in Lucban. Okay, this is one of my favorite stories. I grew up in Lucban. I studied elementary and high school in Lucban, and the only source of art that I have was the 2 coffee table book in the library. So during recess, I would go to the library, I would open the 2 coffee table book by Manuel Duldulao. So that is the notion of contemporary art for me that time when I was in high school. So those are like, I mean, I don't have anything against them, but they're like, these are like landscapes, very colorful, still life and everything. So, and I learned art through those books, you know. So when I entered college, of course, I'm skilled, I'm capable, I was really competent, I was able to graduate and everything, but it's totally different from the notion that I grew up with, you know. And that's why when I graduated, so super confused ako. Hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin ko. What is contemporary? What is art, you know? And then yung encounter ko with Bobby Valenzuela was really heartbreaking. Literally, you know, although it's a informal mentorship something, you know, but there's so much learning and unlearning that happened during that period of time. But when I finally get to really understand art and the many ins and outs and whatever context, history of art, I realized the importance of extending that kind of encounter and experience in Lucban. You know, I hope that by bringing Project Space Pilipinas in Lucban, we can use that as a platform to introduce the locals as early as possible. Now, okay, come, look at the exhibitions here. These are not the conventional painting sculptures that you see on the glossy pages of coffee table books. You can see works of Poklong Anading, Wabi Nabarosa, Kiri Dalena, David Medalla, diba? Santiago Bose, and even other exhibitions that are really, I mean, conceptually difficult and visually challenging also. But we try our best always to really reduce it in a level wherein we can extend the understanding of the work, which is because I don't want the young people to grow up like me, not having, not being able to really talk about, okay, what is this that I'm seeing, you know. Like for example, yung work ni Poklong, di ba? Nakalagay doon yung mga gulong sa PSP. And then students came in, and then they were stepping on the works, and like, okay, sir, nasa na po yung art? Because they're not seeing anything on the wall, so it's like, oh, you're stepping on it. Art na po yan, di ba? Which is very raw and very nice also at the same time. So you have to contextualize that, you know, because this is something na common material in a very uncommon space as well. So you have to reduce, I mean, articulate the ideas that this is a material and this is an art space, and then things happen when you put something outside and you put it in a context of this and that, you know, and then paano siya nagiging art. So ang dami ng explanation. Ano. But those are very important windows of opportunity for us to open the possibility of dialogue, you know, and really informally educating also. But wala naman kaming super na dream of like paglabas mo ng Lucban, super knowledgeable ka na sa art. But at least that kind of encounter and access is very important for us. So we have 2 programs. One is like a program wherein they can have that kind of first-hand encounter. You know, they get to see, walk around, and then another program, which is actually the public program, wherein we formulate public programs that would have the audience an access or an experience of how the thought process of the artist was able to be manifested in the works that is being presented in front of them, you know. So for example, we have an exhibition of geometric abstraction, we have a portraiture photograph, and then we have a weaving. And then how can you come up with a program that would talk about portraiture? By combining geometric abstraction, weaving, and, you know, diba? Those kind of things are the things that we do because we want to really elevate yung consciousness ng tao and also understanding about materials and how materials can be used as a medium to translate ideas. And then, magkaroon ng panibagong pagtingin na, okay, when you say portraiture, hindi pala kailangan yung likeness ng image ng tao yung gagawin mo. What if yung portraiture is about you tell your story, your dreams and nightmares and ambition, illustrate it in your piece of paper, you cut it in strips, you weave it, and then you create a pattern, and then you have your portrait na jagged, parang banig. Diba? So nag-iba yung kanilang consciousness. Okay, portraiture pala doesn't have to be like about illustrating yourself. Yeah. So yung mga ganong klase ng workshops. That's why when you follow yung mga workshops namin, wala kaming basic drawing for kids, basic oil painting, wala. Because for us, it's very important that we extend yung translation is more important. Storytelling, more than being technically competent, super, you know. Kasi I grew up dun sa Lucban, pagalingan. Pagalingan mag-portrait, pagalingan mag-landscape, kailangan super realistic yung work mo. But then, the narrative behind, the idea behind, the concept behind, lacking, you know. And we want to focus on the translation. If you want to focus on the translation, you might want to focus on, start with the storytelling. What can you say about the community? What can you say about these things that's happening around us, you know? And then, what if you use this material, this object, or you can translate it in a different medium or material. So, yung ganong experience, ayoko sanang maulit sa ibang tao. So, and something that I also realize is that when you put up a contemporary art space or initiative in a particular space or place like Lucban, a small town, you do not just think about your space. You think about the community. Kasi sila yung pinaka-immediate na magiging audience mo. So, which means you have to really come up with programs that will activate them and then encourage them to come inside and participate and have an exchange with you. Diba? So very conscious talaga yung lahat ng effort na ginagawa namin sa PSP. So even bringing mga programs from different institutions and different groups, we welcome that. Especially if we feel like this is something new, this is something different, and this is something that should be experienced by our community, we welcome those programs or those engagement or partnerships. Any other question?
I think there's a question. And then
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I guess what strikes me the most about the exhibition is that this sort of like push and pull between decadence and deprivation. I guess you mentioned this earlier a little bit, but I guess I want to ask it again somehow. How important was it to sort of like reframe or recontextualize rituals, traditions, communities through that lens, or was it a conscious choice, or was it not a conscious choice?
It's a conscious approach that I did because I grew up in Lucban. You can see the disparity of the haves and those who don't have, you know. And ito na nga yung main reason why I felt like I don't have to go outside. From my small town, I can already experience and, you know, very visible na, okay, this is how they display power, this is how they display wealth, you know. And then by using, and it is very much exhibited in how we express them or on how we express them through our rituals and our traditions, you know. Pahiyas, for example. Pag alam mong ang ganda-ganda ng pahiyas, alam mong mayaman yung nakatira. Bonggang-bongga. But the thing is, hindi siya yung naglagay ng pahiyas, hindi siya yung gumawa ng decoration. They use their money, hired people to decorate for their house. But they're not aiming for the price. They're aiming for the prestige and yabang, bongga. Same goes for the procession during Holy Week. Those who has andas or yung karosa, makikita mo pabonggahan sila ng decoration, how colorful, how bright, and then the people lined at the back of the parang yung display ng kanilang, I mean, I don't have anything against those but you can see na kailangan nilang i-exhibit talaga. So parang minsan nadi-defeat yung purpose of why you're practicing these rituals. So as you can see, the rituals and the traditions are kind of strategies or maybe methodologies wherein being continuously practiced because it's a means of control. That's why, for example, sa misa, sa mass, bakit kailangan ipakita ng pare na naghuhugas siya ng kamay and everything, and why do we need to sing these songs, But I also go to church every Sunday. So may ganong klase rin ng contradiction. But you can observe how we should practice these traditions because it gives some kind of solidarity, at least a semblance of solidarity with how things should go and continue in the community. But actually, you can see that this is actually a means of control and how to keep. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if. Thank you.
Hi, Leslie. I'm a big fan of your process and of how you always integrate dialogue, context, and engagement into your practice. So this question is a little bit more on a personal note. Have you ever seen yourself in a place where the community changed your idea of the work more than you changed theirs?
I'm sure nangyari.
And
I'm sure.
what instances?
But I think as an artist working with the community, you really need to be open to those possibilities. You need to embrace those kasi it's very unlike studio work. You have control of what's going to happen. It's going to be the output. Like for example, recently we had a performance ecologist in Lucban, Clueless kami. We want to push for that kind of performance, public engagement, but we're not really sure how the public will resonate or will react, But we need to embrace limitations. I think sa community work, working with engaging or participation with other groups, you need to be really open also. And then it's okay if mag-change because you will also definitely learn something out of it. Yun yung hinahanap ko because I don't want to apply that kind of I'm the artist, I need to dictate what will be the output and how it's been. I'm sorry, but I cannot. Maybe, but I'm sure nangyari na. Wala lang ako ma-recall the story for particular story, but I'm sure meron yan. And I'm saying this because I'm open to that kind of possibility, that kind of change also. Because ang hirap din if you would be really imposing, because working with the community, you have to be very, very open also. Because magkaiba kayo ng level of understanding, let's say, sa pag-create ng culture o kaya how you shape and, present yung culture sa isa't isa. So, that kind of openness is very important. But for sure, nangyari na yun.
Good afternoon,
Good
po.
afternoon.
So I'm interested with your art practice kasi it's such a variety of mediums po. So I just wanted to ask, how do you choose what medium to use? I remember you mentioned that you have to match your ideas with the mediums that you use. So example for painting, and parang how do you what is your process like in choosing, I want to express this idea in sculptural form and not in painting? And what the thought process is like, basically.
Thank you. Actually, all boils down on your definition of art. Each one of us has our own definition of art. So, for example, if I define art as art is about ideas, the articulation of ideas, communication, expression of ideas, it means the central aspect of my process is ideas. So I go straight to ideas, and then I think of the appropriate form that could best represent the idea. So because different forms, they have different limitations. Hindi lahat pwede mong ipinta. And then if it could be best represented, or a material or a medium or a found object even can embody the idea that you want to push or present, why not use or create sculptural work or installation work? Bakit kailangan kong ipilit sa painting? So there are works that will kumbaga, be more effective sa 2 dimensions, so I will paint it. But again, the question is, okay, I'll do it in an installation piece. But again, installation work, what kind of materials? Paano yung presentation? So ang dami ring considerations. Of course, space, and then resources that you have, and then if you're going to do it in painting, how big yung painting? Anong medium yung gagamitin mo? But those are like parang second nature mo na as an artist. So parang, okay, I want to do a work that will talk about parang hoping that people would rethink that this object is made of wood, and these are like just mere pieces of wood. So I have to deconstruct this object, and then show it like really a literal piece of wood, and then carve yung half, give them a hint of something. Of course, you can do it also in painting, but if you can push for other materials and medium to convey your ideas, I think that's how I decide as an artist, or my creative process. So yeah, idea first, and then work with the medium or form. So sometimes I work with video, sometimes with community engagement, sometimes with drawings, But the challenge is also, how are you going to effectively convey your message using this medium? So very conscious, actually, very deliberate, rather, yung approach. Anyone else? Yeah. So Gwen.
Hello.
Hi.
First, I want to say that I've followed your practice throughout, several years. But particularly for this exhibition, I was very excited to hear Eileen's question earlier about uncrafting, which is, I think, tied also to how you practice your position now, is kind of like have geared towards also like social practice and community behind. My question for the first part is, in terms of like championing material culture and craft material into the practice, do you still have the sense of experience when you make these works on, alam mo yung parang the miracle of the transformation of material, or like yung hiwaga ng material,
yeah.
which I always kind of which I've seen in a lot of your past works. I want to know how do you engage, or how do you like, what is your experience, or do you still experience that at this point of your practice? And then my second question is, having a community PSP as part of, that's now embedded into your practice, do you feel baggage by that responsibility of having a community behind you, or is it the other way around? Does the community work have or like allow your individual practice to have more weight in a time where the art world kind of gives more advantage to people who kind of have this, or kind of position themselves to have communities or are backed by like social practices? So those are my two questions.
Ang haba naman ng pang Miss Universe mo na question, Gwen. But anyway, with regards to the materials, that's why sobrang addict ko sa materials. I really enjoy working with different materials. I look at materials, I always try to explore, okay, what is this? What can I do about this? What can I produce or use this for? No. Ano yung ine-embody ng materials na to? Ano yung history niya? And then, pag in-apply ko na siya on a particular idea or form, and then na-realize mo like, oh, meron pa rin. Meron pa rin yung aura and wow factor. And that's what I'm looking for. And then you get to experience that or those kind of things during the process. And that's very addicting for me because it gives me more ideas, nanganganak lalo. So like for example, if using like, okay, I use rice paper, what if I can use pig intestine? Diba? What if, so yung ganong klase ng is a thing that's really joyful for me, but at the same time, because it's something that you're learning kasi. And then it gives you more possibilities for your future projects. So it's something that I really enjoy. You know, hanggang ngayon, yung hinahanap ko, yung may madidiscover ka about the materials, you know, or even the process, or even how the material will resonate when the audience magkaroon ng encounter yung audience mo at saka yung materials mo, or yung form na yung presentation mo. On the question of, okay lang na gusto sagot ko ba yun? But anyway, on the question dun sa hindi ko alam kung tama yung understanding ko dun sa, hindi ko nakikita as baggage yung community. I always say na yung Project Space Pilipinas and yung Lucban is actually an extension of my practice. You know, so probably the community or the initiative helps expand pa yung practice ko as an artist. I mean, as you can see, if I will have to do community engagement, ang laki ng contribution ng position ng PSP. You know, so I don't see it as the initiative as a kind of extra burden, but I see it as a kind of an additional responsibility also. Magkasabay, yeah. Yung nurturing, I'm nurturing the community, but also the community is also nurturing me. So, yes, ang strength ko is the community, my family and my friends and the whole, you know, initiative. Yun yung strength ko talaga. And that's why I also take good care of this company that I have. Kasi yun talaga yung, yes, nag-uusong sa akin. Ano. And also, I mean, hindi ko to kayang gawin mag-isa. You know, I really acknowledge the support, you know, and assistance that I have. And nasagot ko.
Right. So, because I guess I heard you talking about AI earlier. Even as an artist, like I still have my resistance to AI. But if you go to the world's fairs, you know, Frieze, Basel, AI is like part of the programming validated by institutions, the market, etc. But I guess seeing some of your works, you were able to sort of like still recall something ancient and something new in the paintings and stuff like that. I guess the bigger question is, what do you think the place of AI is in contemporary art? Considering that, you know, we're from the global south and AI uses a lot of resources from the global south, the environment, labor, etc. Do you think as long as it sort of critiques power structures that it's okay? Or how do you see it evolving in your practice or in PSP's practice?
I'm not sure if I have if I'm in the position to really talk about on that scale of, the global south and how AI is affecting yung labor aspect ng global south, But as you can see, how I used AI dito sa work sa exhibition ko is not the end product. It's just a tool that I use. It's not like I cannot even call it AI art because I'm still using the conventional way of doing. Parang in a way, nag-create ka lang ng reference and then you still painted the works. So, sorry.
Hindi siya large language model, kasi kaya,
Yeah.
that's why I asked, like, if it's just like a facility within Photoshop. It's not quite as energy hungry as
Pero I acknowledge yung power ng AI. I mean, ang dami talagang pinapadali na trabaho ng AI. But I guess that's the challenge to artists also, di ba? Ang dami nang medyo hesitant sa paggamit ng AI. But again, it's like the question of you have these materials, what are you going to do with these materials or medium, So that kind of consciousness or being conscious on how you're going to effectively translate your ideas. If it's going to require the use of AI, why not? Diba? And if it's integral and will be part of the narrative, bakit hindi? Diba? Why not use? So ako kahit kung magkakaroon ng need for me to really work with AI, I will work with AI, But on the level ng PSP, because sa Lucban is a small town. It's a small population, But it's culturally rich, So that's why crucial yung growth nung visual literacy and understanding nila ng art. So crucial din yung programming na ginagawa namin. So very deliberate. Hindi kami pwede mag-jump agad, AI tayo ngayon, diba? Whereas you will really have to introduce them the most traditional way of doing things, but at the same time giving it a kind of elevated way of using them. So parang by slowly, mas deliberate yung approach. I'm not sure, maybe in the future sila na yung bahala maka-encounter sa AI, but for now mahalaga yung foundation I don't want to take part on that, Kami yung project space, kami yung mag-i-introduce sa inyo ng the latest in technology and something like that. Is hopefully, inalis na nila ang CPAR. Yeah? Diba? Yung ganon, diba? Parang even mga taga-CPAR pumupunta sa PSP and they would ask us if we can help them talk about art to their students. Habang nag-artist talk kami, exhibition walkthrough, even the teachers like listening carefully and like parang first time nilang makarinig ng ideas about how to translate things in art. So parang ang dami nang lacking and then aalisin pa. Hindi pa natin na-perfect. I guess yung part na yon, hindi pa natin na-perfect yung appropriate na understanding and education about art, and then why use or introduce something new. But these are things that are, of course, out of my control also. So, but at least for us, we want to just focus on what surrounds us. Ito lang yung community namin, and I think yung small contribution is very much very important for us. Maliit na contribution lang, 1 or 2 na medyo lumabas from Lucban, who can really like understand what art is and what the role of art is in the community. Okay na kami doon. And what we're doing in Lucban is actually a groundwork. I always say this is groundwork, so that kapag may mga may i-introduce kaming mga bagong bagay, at least the community, the people are prepared already. Kasi when you introduce art sa local communities, ang hirap, let's say magpo-propose ka sa local government and say, we have a project, an art project, and they will say, okay, ano yung art? Paano siya naging art project? Imagine mo yung ganun. Proposing one project is one thing, and proposing what your art project is all about is another thing. But what if you were able to really sharpen na yung kanilang consciousness and understanding about art, and then you come up to them and like, okay, we have this contemporary video art presentation, we would like to put it in public spaces, and like, okay, they will easily allow because aware na sila, conscious na sila, and familiar na sila dun sa ganong klase ng gawain. But it's a long na trabaho, mahabang trabaho. So, yeah, usapin siya ng endurance and persistence and yeah, ubusan ng lakas. Pasensya.
I was just wondering, maybe to pick up from the question na yung nagpapakwento. This work, itong, ano nga title niya? Lango? Lango ba to? Ito, yung mga t-shirts. I'm wondering if that rather involved process where you had to negotiate, right? You had to ask them for their shirts, which they had been using for sa pamamanata. So meron siyang karga.
Yes.
On the clothing and memory.
May talab.
Right. I'm wondering if that negotiation process kind of brought any of those aha moments or to you as an artist, because I mean, why would they exchange something so precious to them for a work if unless you kind of get them to that place where they understand what you're trying to do? So.
Actually, every exhibition making is always a humbling experience, but creation or creating works individually, single works, it's always a learning process. So laging may aha, So of course, yung binivisualize mo is always different from the actual shaping of your work, So sometimes, like, especially yung mga participatory na projects, there will be like times like, wow, sakto yung ini-imagine ko, iniisip ko, or binivisualize ko, siya naging resulta, And then there are times like, oh my God, walang sala, it's a miss, So I think yung nag-fail ka or you did not reach the expected output are both learning curves for me. But kung meron mang aha is always there, and I'm always looking forward to having that kind of encounter. For this project, ang haba ng proseso eh. But I guess, yun din, if you're being sensitive with the current condition that we have, I won't be able to do this without the social media. Iba rin yung acceptance. Because yung implementation nito will start with the promotion. Like an open call for an exchange, but you will have to contextualize also what the project is all about and why you're doing this. Diba? So meron ka ng initial advance party, kumbaga na, okay, that will explain to them. And then, because this was implemented in a small town, it's word of mouth also. But then also, mahalaga rin siguro yung naging position ko and yung naging status ko na rin as an artist. So may ambag din na, okay, project ni Leslie, let's all participate. And so may ganong klase na, talab din siguro. So parang, that kind of power or position, or I don't know, if you use it properly, it will be for your advantage also, and it will kumbaga lessen the hassle of really explaining everything to the participants or to the people, But it also requires a certain kind of consistency, you know. So parang, that's why you need to look after those parang aha moments, because definitely manganganak ito. Like for example, yung procession sa Lucban, I guess malapit na namin ma-perfect yung ano. That's the third time. The last week we had the procession of Brown Madonna by Ea Torado. Ang ganda nung presentation niya. And the coordination and everything. It's like a lightning performance. We prepared the performance for a week. But I guess yung pinaka-araw ng performance in the public, parang seamless eh. So I guess meron na kaming mga perfect na way of doing things with the community. And yun yung hinahanap namin. So that yung mga near or mga future projects namin, we will be able to really, you know, preempt kung ano yung mga possibilities and potentials in the future. Yeah.
I think we're right on time. It's like a minute. Yeah, I just wanted to say maybe a good way to kind of just wrap it up is that one of the key ideas behind Talaban and dialogical and dialectical work is that it is very much anchored on process and how an open-endedness. Yes. So yeah, so it doesn't stop on the gallery floor. It doesn't stop in your head, and there is so much more to take away from it and think through and remake at a future time. So thank you for this talk, Leslie, and thank you everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Again, thank you very much to Gaja Gallery. I just want to say a few words before, and thank you, Ate Eileen, for joining me here. Whenever I put up exhibitions, kaya ganito rin yung ka-diverse yung forms at saka yung ideas. I hope nakikita nyo na talagang pinagtrabahuan and pinaggastusan. Because I really care for the audience. You know? Ayokong aksayahin yung panahon ng audience. I don't want to invite you and like you come here and then you see like one painting, two painting, 10 paintings, but they all look the same. You know, so I think yung responsibility ko is for you to have that kind of encounter wherein you would have the joy of experiencing different articulations and ideas and materials in one room. So that when you go back home, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na yun lang ang pinakita ni Leslie. Yun na yun, di ba? Parang, so that kind of responsibility is always with me whenever I create exhibitions. So again, thank you so much for coming.